This is a how to clean your flute video. Cleaning your flute once a month will help your flute last longer and for you to spend less money taking it to a repair shop. There's two causes for deterioration for the flute. The first one is mechanical wear, which means because playing the flute so many times the keys go up and down, that causes the keys to get loose. And the second thing is moisture. It's caused from the breath. Breath has sugar, acid, and bacteria. These can build up on the inside, outside, and the pads of the flute. Moisture can make the metal rust, making the keys on the flute very hard to move. And you can prevent this by putting oil to the left and the right of each key. Since oil and water don't mix, the oil can prevent the moisture from coming on the pads, and that way it can prevent it from rusting the metal. So after you use oil, you could use the Yamaha oil for the flutes. After you put it on the left and the right side for each key, move the key up and down for each one to let the oil get through all the keys and pads and let it spread. Now remember that the oil part is an option. If you take it to a repair shop, they could do it for you. But you could still buy the oil from the repair shop and you can do this on your own. It's very simple. So after you put the oil and you tap the keys, each one, up and down, use a cloth and put it through each key like this, and then press down the key, and then push the cloth away like this. Doing so will allow the excess sugar. This metal rod is given with every flute, and each one has an indicator mark on it, right there. This indicator mark, you put it inside the head joint, and it should line up in the middle. And as you can tell, it does not line up in the middle. This means that I have to fix it with the cork. The indicator mark tells me that if it's in the middle right there for the lip hole, it tells it whether it's affecting the tuning or not. If it's in the middle, then that means it's in tune. And if it's not, turning the cork a few times will help it get it back in tune. But if you do so and it's still not working, if the indicator mark is still not in the middle of the hole, then that means you have to take it to a repair shop because it's defective. If the mark is too far to the left, then you have to loosen the crown a few turns and then push it in. If the mark is too far to the right, then you have to tighten the crown with a few turns. So since my indicator was too far to the left, that means that I have to turn the crown a few turns like this and then push it in a little. So pushing it in, I put back the indicator mark and it shows that right now it's in the middle. So that means it's now in tune and it's good. So if you have a leak in your keys, then there's something wrong with your screws. And you can fix that by using a jeweler screw because it's really small for the tip. So bear in mind that fixing one leak may cause another. So these adjustments should be approached with caution because once you tighten one screw, because this is stuck like this, you have to pull it all the way. You have to fix the screw so it can go all the way down like this so it won't cause any leaks. But doing this, since they're all connected to a metal rod, if this is fixed, this might have been pushed too hard and it might not close the same way. So that in this case, you'd have to fix this one as well. You may have to proceed with all the pads if this happens because they're mostly all connected together. So avoid being too extreme with this because attempting to move the screw no more than 1/4 of a turn at any time, it will ruin it for a second because it's really small and anything will cause it to move like a lot. So you have to move it like this, just a tiny bit, and then check like pushing down to see if it's working. It is possible to adjust these screws too far, so don't screw them up until they feel tight. It is very easy for a beginner to mess this up, but don't worry because there's an easy way to fix it. But turning of these screws so much will often cause them to become loose, and so the flute will become unreliable. And so by doing this, you can always fix the screw and then you can put a drop of nail polish on the screw so it can keep it together. The other screws, not the ones that are controlling the pads, the keys, the other screws are the ones that are going to be on the rods, the tip of the metal rods. So the other screws on the flute, they hold the mechanism onto the body, and these screws can get really easily like loose. So you have to constantly check on them and tighten the screws, but don't force it back in. Make sure that it's in, but like on the top, it's not like really back out. And if it's always loose, you can always put a dab of nail polish on it. But if you do so, the next time you take it to a repair shop, make sure to mention this to the repair guy so they can know that and they can fix it. Because of the moisture from our breath, the sugar gets stuck on the sides of the pads, which causes sticky pads. To fix this, we can use rubbing alcohol, which is also called isopropyl alcohol. And we can put some on a piece of cloth like this. Take this. Then we take the cloth, we put it underneath the pad like this. You close down the pad and then you pull the cloth. Doing this it will get all the sugar from the pads that are stuck on and onto the cloth. And then you get another cloth that does not have rubbing alcohol on it, and you put it underneath the pad, and then you push down the pad and you pull the cloth. You have to repeat this process for all 16 pads. The rubbing alcohol, it gets all the active solvents out from underneath the pads, not just the sugar. Plus, you can buy the alcohol from any drugstore, so it's really accessible to get. You don't have to buy it from a repair shop. So over time, the outside of the flute collects dust, and it's really hard to clean it with a cloth. So what you can do is you can use a clean, soft tip makeup brush like this, or you can use a flute tip brush. Okay, so you can go through it like this and go back and forth, but make sure that you're not pressing too hard because the metal strings like these, they're really fragile, and if you press too hard, then you can put them out of place. And do that for all the flute parts. So once you're done cleaning the dust off, some of them are knocked loose. So make sure to get a clean cloth, and you can just clean the outside of the flute like this. Make sure to get the axis. right here. Make sure to never use water to clean your flute, because using water not only will rust the flute and make it really, really hard to put it together, but it will make it really hard to play with. So we just used this blue cloth to get all the sugar underneath the pads that are stuck. So now we used a different cloth so it can be clean. We take the metal rod that we usually get with every flute that we buy. We take the cloth, the end of it, and you put it through this hole. So once you put this through the hole, make sure that most of it is in there, like this. You have to do it for each part of the flute. We'll start with the head joint first. Put it in this. You could twist it like that. And then make sure that when you're cleaning it, you're not holding the pads down. And if you can't reach it all the way to the other side, it's okay. Just put it back on the other side and clean it. So putting the flute parts down, make sure that none of the keys are facing down. Fingers have oil on them, and the flute, when you touch it, it gets the oil on it. To remove the oil, you get a clean cloth, you get some rubbing alcohol, you put some on the cloth, and then you get the flute for each part, and you just rub the outside part of the flute like this. You even clean the part of the pads as well, but very gently. After you do so, you get another piece of cloth, but this time there's no alcohol on it, and you clean the outside of the flute parts again. That way you can get rid of the alcohol. So the materials that are needed is oil for the flute so it won't get rusted and the parts can move easily. The flute parts, obviously. The cleaning rods, right here, for the head joint to see if it's in tune and to fix the crown, sorry. And to use it with the cloths to clean the inside of the flute and the outside. The cloths, several ones, so you can have the rubbing alcohol on it and to clean the outside of it without the rubbing alcohol on it. You have to have rubbing alcohol, which is also called isopropyl. You have to have the screwdriver that's the size of a jeweler's screwdriver, because the screws are really small. And the makeup brush to clean the dust in between the keys. And